Hi, this is George Robb, and you're listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast.
Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 424, the 6th of November 2016. Richard Saunders here with you from sunny skies are blue, sunny Sydney, Australia. And maybe you can too, I can hear the birds singing outside. They're rainbow lorikeets. Yes, and some cockatoos thrown in for good measure or bad measure. They can be destructive beasties, cockatoos. The rainbow lorikeets and the cockatoos are singing outside in the glorious sunshine. We should just all run outside now and just enjoy the day instead of listening to the Skeptic Zone. No, I don't think that'll work. In fact, do both, yes. You can put your headphones on and run outside, enjoy the glorious day, and listen to the Skeptic Zone unless where you are in the world is miserable weather. Then stay inside and listen to the Skeptic Zone, or you can go for a drive, or maybe you're in the bus or the train. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, welcome to the Skeptic Zone. Today's special guest is Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki from the recent past, in fact QED, where our reporter and the president of Australian Skeptics, Eran Segev, interviewed Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki, who was a guest at QED, and Dr. Karl from the past, in fact, a quarter of a century ago, where Maynard interviews Dr. Karl, and Dr. Karl takes some talk back. We've dug up a short clip of Dr. Karl and Maynard from 1991. Hard to believe. Anyway, I'm sure you'll enjoy both Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki's today on the Skeptic Zone. Following the interviews with Dr. Karl's, if I can put it that way, some great news from Heidi Robertson and the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. The group has been recognized by the WHO, the World Health Organization, or the WHO. And all the doctors from the WHO, I'm sure, are delighted with Heidi Robertson and the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. News from Heidi about that inclusion of the website from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters at the WHO coming up in the middle of the show. Well done, Heidi, and well done everybody at that group. Then we have an interesting story, sort of look back into the past, something called Orgone Energy. Orgone, folks, a really bizarre form of New Age fictitious fantasy, supposed, made up. One day I'm going to have a thesaurus here next to me on the desk. Orgone Energy. And we are thinking about Orgone Energy at the moment because just recently Australia noticed the 10th anniversary of the death of Peter Brock, a very famous racing car driver, who unfortunately was sucked in by Orgone Energy, or claims of it, and tried to fit magical boxes to cars to make them go faster. Coming up a bit later on in the show. Then to round off the show, a startling story about what we can call rank stupidity, I guess, where the flying monkeys, the anti-vaxxers, have singled out the wrong person. They're trying to target Reasonable Hank. Now, we mention Reasonable Hank lots here on the Skeptic Zone. We refer to his blog and various... Oh, there goes a rainbow lorikeet. We refer to his blog and various things he's doing. Well, the anti-vaxxers are livid. They hate Reasonable Hank, and some of them thought they discovered where he lived and have been sending abusive emails and phone calls and things like that. But they have picked on the wrong person, an innocent man and his family. They are so stupid, and they're boasting about how they've found Reasonable Hank. You won't believe this story. They're so stupid, I have to walk outside. They are so stupid. That's how stupid they are. I had to go outside to say it. And even that's stupid. Anyway, coming up at the end of the show, we have a report from Janes Hansen, who has written about this story, the absolutely colossal case of bungling incompetence from the flying monkeys, the anti-vaxxers. So I think you'll enjoy the show today. A bit of a mixed bag as ever. I like to have a bit of variety in the Skeptic Zone. But now it's time for me to go outside that door again. I was just behind. Run downstairs, and I think I'll make up some... It's a hot day. What should I have on a hot day? A nice salad. A Caesar salad. There we are, folks. A nice Caesar salad. Why not? Yeah, it sounds like just the thing. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Grain of salt. Grain of salt. Grain of salt.
Let's all take this with a grain of salt. Here's Eran Segev.
Grain of salt now. Grain of salt. You gotta take it with a...
So, Karl, welcome to the Skeptic Zone.
Thank you, Dr. Eran.
Once again, you've given a talk here at QED, and three talks, so
as well as two in London.
Okay, the talk you gave yesterday was about great moments in science.
Yeah, that was a vague generic title. Specifically, It was about the irrationalities that we humans suffer from, and how even when we think of being irrational, we still can get irrational. And so I gave the example, the big one, the easy one, is diets. And so straight away, there's a product that fails 95% of the time and does fabulously well. And then dived off into the political bias that affects our thinking, so that the people on the right, for example, might not accept the science of climate change, the people on the left might not accept the science of vaccination, and then sort of meandered around through the world of irrationality for a while.
And you also you gave a panel earlier, which was basically the normal format for you of questions and answers. Is that right?
Yeah. So in the early afternoon, there was a panel talking about bringing science awareness to this generation and the next generation, and how well it works or doesn't work, and especially the little trap you can fall into, where at school you say, hey, science is all fun and bombs and lots of things that explode, and they go to university and suddenly they fall over and realising, not having previously realised, that they have to do a lot of hard work to get those difficult concepts into their brain. So and then I sort of tied that in with the overall problem, which I think is the major part, which is that many governments around the world do not accept that education is a worthwhile investment in the future, and instead have gone down a different pathway of seeing it as an intolerable and expensive burden on society. And I gave the example also that in the USA, where there's a big rise in private prisons, that one of the best determinators of how many prison cells you'll need in 10 years is the illiteracy rate among the 10 and 11-year-olds. And then finally, that in Australia, for certain, it costs more to put somebody in jail than it does to put them into a 3-star, 5-star hotel and send them to university and pay all their costs.
It's quite disturbing, isn't it? The choices that governments make.
Well, more and more, it appears to me, looking at the trends over time, and it's not all governments, but many governments are becoming agents of big business. So, yeah, big business might be powerful, but they don't have their own army or navy or air force, but they don't have to, if they can influence the big government to do their dirty work for them. And so in this case, I advise people to read the book Merchants of Doubt by Naomi Oreskes. And she talks about the example of the big tobacco companies and how they went to a lot of trouble to fund a deliberate and well-funded disinformation campaign, and how they were used as an example for the big fossil fuel companies to run a well-funded and very extensive disinformation campaign about global warming.
And of course, what she's shown in that book is that it's a lot of the same people were actually involved in both campaigns. Now, Karl, you obviously you're a mainstay of the skeptical movement. You've been Skeptic of the Year in the past in Australia.
I was deeply honoured. I'm very proud of that, and I think that you guys are doing God's work. If there is or is not a God, doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant.
Yeah. So you've obviously attended many of our conferences as well, and have given us multiple talks in the past. But for you, skepticism is also something that comes. It almost comes. I would say it's probably an ethical issue, because you have actually left your profession as a medical doctor to promote critical thinking and to promote, especially around vaccines, because you saw a child die of whooping cough.
So in Australia we had 0 deaths from whooping coughs for 20 years, and then suddenly we had one, and I was there at the kids' hospital in Sydney, in Camperdown, when the first kid to die after 20 years did die. And there was no need for it to die. It was purely as a result of people on TV trying to sell more dog food, therefore trying to raise some controversy, and therefore saying, well, these people here say that vaccinations work and these people say that it doesn't. It's over to you. Why don't you, the general public, make a balanced decision on the lack of information we give you? And so we had a drop in herd immunity, and as a result, a baby died. And that very strongly influenced me to go into the media, because I felt I could do more good there. And as a result, I gave up the best job of my whole life, which was being a doctor in a kids' hospital, so I could do more good in the community.
Now, on a completely different note, you've attended, as I mentioned, many of our conferences, but you've now spoken at TAM in Vegas, and this is your first QED, I believe?
First QED, yeah. And I knew nothing about it, and it was your own good people, Richard Saunders, for example, who put me in contact with them, and they invited me to come here, and I said, sure. And then jumped onto a plane on Thursday afternoon, landed on Friday morning, did something in Friday midday, Friday afternoon, and then jumped onto a train and came here for Saturday and Sunday, and then on Monday I'll fly straight back again.
And how do you feel about the skeptical movement around the world now? You've seen it not just in Australia, but in other places, in the US and the UK. How do you feel in terms of the level of activity and what you're seeing in terms of the dedication to the cause?
It's essential to have an aware public during these tricky times where the model of investigative journalism is changing. So, previously, we had journalism, and some of that was investigative journalism, and it was funded by advertisements for dolls and real estate and cars. So the newspapers used the revenue from their advertisements and from commercial, small scale stuff to fund investigative journalism. That model is falling over. Most of the newspapers are not shifting over well. The New York Times is. I'm very happy to pay $15 a month to get the New York Times via the internet, and I love reading it, and they're doing good scale investigation. In Australia, we've got 2 separate situations happening. One, we have the Fairfax, which is seeming to go into a slow motion tumble into leaving print because of various bad decisions that were made along the way, not giving them enough revenue to survive the transition from print into the internet. And the other model is the Murdoch newspapers, which are an entirely different kettle of fish because they're being run at a loss for various reasons. And so we're in this transition period. And it's so good that the skeptical movement is keeping alive the light of knowledge during this transition time. Where we end up with and what we end up with, we have no idea. Who can tell the future? Apart from stuff like the tides and eclipses and stuff like that we can predict. But the social movements are so complex. So you're doing good work, and I'm hoping that you'll influence the future. Well, you will, of course.
Dr. Karl, thank you very much for being on the Skeptic Zone.
Thank you, Dr. Eran.
Grain of salt now. Grain of salt, you gotta take it with a...
G'day, this is Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki, proud to be a skeptic, and you can find out more about me at drkarl.com and get lots of free stuff there as well.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
And move one to the left, and we've got Karl Kruszelnicki. Hi, Karl, how are you?
Hi. Look, Maynard, I think I should tell you about some scientific truth in labelling.
Really? Because we're going to take some calls, but go for it.
Right, okay, with regard to the microphone you are using, any use of that microphone in any manner whatsoever will increase the amount of disorder in the universe, and the consumer, that is you, are warned this process of talking on the microphone will lead ultimately to the heat death of the universe.
Me?
Do you feel any guilt?
No, not. Well, you're going to pack all that on me?
Mate, it's all your fault. You're increasing the amount of disorder in the universe. And furthermore, with regard to the users, which they should be aware that every single radio that they are using are made of 100% matter. And if it comes in contact with any antimatter, it will explode in a catastrophic explosion.
So, any questions for Karl? You do everything except relationships and windows, don't you? Morning, Chris.
Good morning, how are you, Maynard?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I'm feeling a bit scientific, feeling a bit soggy after the weekend. But what's your question for Karl?
Okay, Karl, look, I'm wondering if there's a future in energy production from perpetual motion machines.
No. There are three basic laws of thermodynamics, which in their original form are quite complicated, but I will give you the simplified version. Law number 1, you cannot win. Number 2, you cannot even break even. Number 3, you will always lose. They're referring to energy. So you cannot make a perpetual motion machine. You can waste a lot of time thinking about it, but at the end of the day, nobody's ever made one.
Yeah, so give up now, okay?
Give up now and sleep easy.
I better go back to bed then.
Go back to bed.
That's 2 people we've put back to bed. Sleeping for Jesus.
Well, that's what the breakfast show's for. Joe, morning, Joe.
Morning, Maynard. Morning, Karl.
Good morning.
You're concerned about a very high tide, aren't you?
Yeah, well, sort of. I missed the part 2 of that show after the warming with James Burke, and I was wondering exactly how the Earth could warm up so far that the seas would rise 300 feet in 70 years.
Did he say 300 feet in 70 years?
Yeah, he was describing back in the Vikings, or Viking times.
Okay, now,
he actually did this.
Right, okay, now the thing to realise is that what we're looking at now, Joe, is abnormal weather. Okay, right, now think of yourself, you are a human being, you have got a 1200 millilitre brain, but 3 million years ago, and 4 million years ago, your brain was half that size, assuming you've lived that long, which you probably haven't, but your ancestors had a brain half that size. In that 3 million years, the typical weather pattern on the planet has been this. There's an ice age for 100,000 years, a non-ice age for 10,000 years. Ice age for 100, non-ice age for 10,000. That's the way it goes. Most of the time is spent in an ice age. Now, in an ice age, what happens is that the ice packs come down from the North Pole as far as Wisconsin, where they're a kilometre high. They come up from the South Pole to within 1,000 kilometres of Tasmania, and there's so much water trapped in the ice that the water level drops by 100 metres or 300 feet. And so with regard to the Aborigines, for most of the time the Aborigines have been in Australia. Australia has been a bigger country and has only been 70 kilometres away from Indonesia, and being sensible, a lot of people that live on the coast, so most of the Aboriginal artefacts are buried underwater. But we are now at the end of this 10,000 year period. Soon another ice age will come along, unless, of course, global warming stops it. Who knows what's going to happen? Hang around, it's going to be exciting times.
But until then, probably go back to bed, I reckon, Joe.
Good idea,
yeah,
thanks.
Fair enough.
Dr. Harriet Hall, MD, known to thousands as the Skepdoc, a retired family physician and former Air Force flight surgeon. She writes about medicine, so-called complementary and alternative medicine, science, quackery, and critical thinking. Harriet now has a free course, a series of 10 video lectures on science-based medicine and alternative medicine. The videos and an accompanying course guide can be found by following the link at skepdoc.info or by visiting web.randy.org/educational-modules.html. Topics covered in the series are science-based medicine versus evidence-based medicine, what is CAM, chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathy, naturopathy and herbal medicine, energy medicine, miscellaneous alternatives, pitfalls in research, and science-based medicine in the media and politics. Harriet covers each topic in a matter-of-fact, no-nonsense way that's sure to educate and entertain. Skepdoc.info.
It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
Hello everyone, Heidi Robertson here from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. This past week was quite a proud moment for our little old grassroots community group. As you'd know by now, we formed 3 years ago in response to the appallingly low rates of vaccination in our regional area of northern New South Wales, Mullumbimby. We're near the popular tourist destination of Byron Bay. Earlier this year, we were notified that the World Health Organization, otherwise known as the WHO, was looking to add links on their website to groups that provided reliable sources of information about vaccines and vaccine safety. We decided to put forward our website for consideration because why not? We do in fact put forward credible information to counter the vast amounts of misinformation out there. We then went through an application process which went on for a few months, and this last week we were approved by the WHO and now appear on their website. As stated by the WHO, quote, "Due to the success of immunisation, some diseases are no longer perceived as a threat. Certain groups have even questioned the utility of vaccination in spite of its proven success in controlling disease. In recent years, a number of websites providing unbalanced, misleading and alarming vaccine safety information have been established, which can lead to undue fears, particularly among parents and patients. Acknowledging the above-mentioned issues and urged by governments, key non-governmental organisations and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, the World Health Organization initiated, in 2003, the Vaccine Safety Net project. A couple of days after we announced this somewhat incredible event on our Facebook page, we were contacted by our local newspaper, the Northern Star, for an interview. That story has now been published online and in print. Our own Dr. Rachel Heap, a Northern Rivers intensive care doctor who wrote the content on our website, was quoted in the article. Here's Richard to read it out.
From the Northern Star newspaper, online edition, published on the 1st of November 2016, Why You Shouldn't Be Afraid of Vaccines group. A local pro-vaccination group that began just 3 years ago has been recognised by the World Health Organization as a good source of information on vaccine safety. The WHO publishes a list of websites that are found to, quote, facilitate the access of public health authorities, health professionals and the public to reliable information, end quote. The Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters group is now one of those websites. It can be found at the WHO's Vaccine Safety Net webpage, along with other successful organisations. Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters announced the achievement on their Facebook page. Quote, "We're absolutely stoked," end quote. One of the group's core administrators, Rachel Heap, told the Northern Star. Quote, "We've worked really hard to put credible and reliable and accurate information out there. To get recognised by the World Health Organization in that short time period for an unfunded grassroots community organisation is just awesome," end quote. She said the group's primary goal was to spread the word that people shouldn't be afraid of vaccines, but instead, quote, "You should be amazed at how extraordinary they are as a public health measure," end quote. Dr. Heap said one of the key strategies the group uses to get the message out there is called the, quote, 1,000 cups of tea, end quote. Quote, "It's sitting down and talking to people about their fears and having the knowledge to explain to them what the science actually shows. That conversation is key to the group," end quote, she said. For more information about the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters, visit them on Facebook or visit www.nrvs.info.
We are both humbled and proud that this has happened, and we thank everyone who has supported us over the past 3 years. Our hope is that in the coming years we can make a measurable difference to the vaccination rates in our region. Thanks for listening. This has been Heidi Robertson, and you can find us on Twitter at NRVaxSupporters, that's VAX, or on Facebook at Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters, or on our website nrvs.info, on Wikipedia, thanks to Susan Gerbic and the Guerrilla Skeptics. And, Susan, if you're listening, we'll need an edit to include this new World Health Organization thing now. And now, also, we can be found on the World Health Organization website. Thanks, everyone. Till next time.
Quackwatch, your guide to quackery, health fraud and intelligent decisions, operated by Stephen Barrett, MD. Quackwatch is now an international network of people who are concerned about health-related frauds, myths, fads, fallacies and misconduct. Its primary focus is on quackery-related information that is difficult or impossible to get elsewhere. Articles on quackery include quackery, how should it be defined, how it sells, 26 ways to spot it, how it harms cancer patients, 7 warning signs for bogus science, why health professionals become quacks, and many more, including in-depth looks at acupuncture, chiropractic, homeopathy, naturopathy, and much more. Visit www.quackwatch.com. Recently here on Australian TV, the biodrama of a very famous man, Peter Brock, was shown. Sadly, Peter Brock died about 10 years ago in a motor car accident. He was known as the King of the Mountain. The mountain referring to the Bathurst race course in western New South Wales, not too far west. A wonderful racing car driver and thrilled many people, had many accomplishments. But he was not immune to falling for certain pseudoscience. The one he fell for is called Orgone Energy, and he was marketing what he called the energy polariser, which was claimed to use this Orgone Energy to give the fuel more oomph, get better mileage, cleaner running, all that sort of standard claims. And in fact, he won the Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon Award. The Bent Spoon being, of course, awarded each year by Australian skeptics to the perpetrator of the most preposterous piece of paranormal or pseudoscientific piffle, or so they say, in 1986. And reading from an article of the history of the Bent Spoon written by Barry Williams, we read the next award went to an Australian sporting icon. In 1986, Peter Brock, Australia's premier touring car driver, became involved in promoting an energy polariser, which he alleged, when attached to the firewall of a car, improved its performance in all fields. The device was not connected to any of the vehicle systems and supposedly worked by the application of a mysterious energy unknown to science. Along with motoring journalists, the skeptics conducted an investigation into the device and found there was no basis for the claims made. The fallout from this affair saw Brock severing his relationship with General Motors, that's General Motors Holden, his long-time sponsors, and with a number of his colleagues. The publicity associated with this case saw the device withdrawn from sale. And as for Orgone Energy itself, from Wikipedia we see, Orgone is a pseudo-scientific and spiritual concept describing an esoteric energy or hypothetical universal life force originally proposed in the 1930s by Wilhelm Reich. As developed by Reich's student Karl Kelly, after Reich's death in 1957, Orgone was conceived as the anti-anthropic principle of the universe, a creative substratum in all of nature comparable to Mesmer's animal magnetism. Orgone was seen to be a massless, omnipresent substance similar to the ether. Reich stated that defects or constrictions in the bodily orgone were the root of many diseases. The article goes on, it's quite extensive, but I think you get the gist. It's one of the famous energies unknown to science, or as skeptic Barry Williams likes to call them, EUTS, E-U-T-S, energies unknown to science. But as we've mentioned, Australian skeptics have been investigating this energy and its associated devices for a long time. And in fact, what I'll do in this week's show notes is I'll provide a link with the automatic search so you can look through previous issues of the magazine The Skeptic, going back 30 years, for references to this Orgone Energy. And if I have a quick look from Volume 7, Issue Number 1 of the Skeptic magazine, way back in 1987, an item written by Barry Williams at the time, the Brock Energy Polarizer, Scientific Breakthrough or Witchcraft. Readers will be familiar with recent media controversy regarding the commercial dispute between General Motors, Holden, and Mr. Peter Brock's company, HDT Proprietary Limited. Central to this dispute appears to be the so-called energy polarizer, a device which consists of magnets and cylinders, which is fitted to General Motors Holden Commodore vehicles, which, after certain modifications, are sold as separate vehicles. Australian skeptics has no interest in the commercial dispute, nor in the mechanical modifications. Our concern is purely the claims made by the energy polarizers as published in the media. In this endeavour, we are frustrated by Mr. Brock's public statement that some claims were made as, quote, a smokescreen, end quote, after his premises had been burgled. He was not explicit as to which claims were genuine and which claims were smokescreen. In particular, we call upon Mr. Brock to explain whether the following claims are valid. Number 1. Does the device utilize Orgone energy? Number 2. Does the device utilize energies unknown to science which cannot be tested by normal scientific means? Number 3. Does the device realign the molecules in the vehicle? Number 4. Does the fitting of the device without any other mechanical adjustment, quote, turn a dog of a car into a sweet running one, end quote? If none of the above claims are valid, what claims are made for the, quote, energy polarizer, end quote? Australian Skeptics has made the investigation of the energy polarizer and various magnet/crystal devices known to be on sale as a major project for 1987. Readers who have informed or have had experience of such devices which claim to have beneficial effects on motor vehicles, water supplies, human beings, or anything else are invited to send us the details. And again, a bit later from 1987, we read, Ben Spoon Award for 1986 goes to Peter Brock and his energy polarizer. So to expand on what we read before by Barry Williams, in a year that saw the usual run of psychics promoting their usual run of unusually wrong predictions, 1986 and the start of 1987 also saw some rather unusual examples of paranormal events, all potential winners of the Australian Skeptics Bench Spoon Award. The judging committee for the Bench Spoon Award rejected the visiting American woman who filled venues in most capitals, claiming to teach the cash-paying public how to, quote, tap the universal force, end quote, to enable them to bend cutlery. The committee considered, not entirely seriously, that this may have been organised by the Cutlery Manufacturers Association in an effort to boost flagging sales. Why else would anybody want to mass bend spoons? Another strong contender was Xantex Limited, which paid Israeli magician and alleged psychic, Uri Geller, $250,000 US to find the location of gold mines. The judges rejected this story as Xantex appeared to be more of a victim than a perpetrator of a psychic scam. In the event, it was agreed that the one outstanding example of pseudoscience of the year was the so-called energy polariser being promoted by top Australian racing driver Peter Brock. The story of how Australian skeptics became involved in the energy polariser affair reads like the plot of a Le Carre novel and is recounted in this issue. Mr Brock joins a distinguished list of winners of the Bench Spoon Award, which includes the Finn Horn Foundation, the Melbourne Metropolitan Board of Works, and psychic Tom Wards. Now here's a short clip of Peter Brock talking about the energy polariser in 1997, courtesy of the Channel 7 Witness program, a current affairs program of the time.
Ultimately, the event that changed Peter Brock more than anything was not one of his many successes, but a failure. It was 1987 and Brock was promoting this new age device called the energy polariser.
Makes motor vehicles work a lot better in all respects.
Peter claimed simply slipping this box of crystals and magnets under the bonnet would make a car run better and wanted to include it in the Holden Brock Commodore. General Motors slammed on the brakes.
There were many concerns, the company claims, but the one which brought the issue to a head was the energy polariser. Holden says it had no choice but to sever the relationship.
Well, I was pretty naive, and I just sort of guess I thought, oh, well, I know this is so, therefore the rest of the world must know it's so. And I just tried to impose my will upon others, I suppose, which is always a great mistake to make. A certain level of arrogance in doing that.
You still believe you were right, though, don't you?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, you know when you're onto something, and, you know, that particular principle is now used very successfully in a number of appliances which people buy, use around their homes, such as water purifiers and things like that. But, you know, that was 10 years ago, and, well, you know what they say about pioneers. They get eaten by the natives.
So I bring this to your attention partly to illustrate what a great resource there is for you waiting at the Australian Skeptics website, skeptics.com.au. If you just use the search box at the top right, you can search through, what is it now? Must be coming up to 36 years of research and work and interviews and items and reports, all at your fingertips. And also to let you know that this Orgone Energy is still an ongoing thing. In this country, you can still buy Orgone devices, one of which I've discovered is the GeoCleanse. And to quote directly from the website of the people selling this device, to activate the GeoCleanse, simply plug it into any power point and turn on the switch. GeoCleanse does not use any power. You need only one GeoCleanse per property. Its design is compact in size, making it portable for travelling or taking to work. End quote. It goes on to say the GeoCleanse is a negative charge resonance pure Orgone resonance POR field generator designed to balance positive charge resonance deadly Orgone resonance DOR, otherwise known as a noxious unhealthy energy created by all forms of EMR, RF, Wi-Fi, Earth and interdimensional radiation, to a potentially healthier negative charge resonance, POR. And that reminds me of something I said a couple of years ago on the Skeptic Zone. You can't make this stuff up. But somebody did. So, with the 10th anniversary of the passing of Peter Brock has given us an opportunity not only to look at Orgone Energy, but to illustrate what a great resource is waiting for you at skeptics.com.au if you are researching paranormal or skeptical items of interest going back many years. A link in the show notes.
AstronomyCast takes a facts-based journey through the cosmos as it offers listeners weekly discussions on astronomical topics ranging from planets to cosmology. Hosted by Fraser Kane of Universe Today and myself, Dr. Pamela Gay of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, this show brings the questions of an avid astronomy lover directly to an astronomer. Together, Fraser and I explore what is known and being discovered about the universe around us. Join us each week as we take a facts-based journey through the cosmos at astronomycast.com.
For years on the Skeptic Zone, we've been telling you about the antics of the flying monkeys. The flying monkeys, otherwise known as the various anti-vaccination groups. Most famous amongst these, of course, is the Australian Vaccination Skeptics Network. Well, it seems that some people involved in the general anti-vaccination movement have really outdone themselves this time. And always the temptation is to put your opponent down as not being very bright in any situation. You're obviously smarter than they are, your side is better than that side, your argument is obviously better than the other argument because you're in it, can be the thinking. In this case, however, well, I'll read on and you'll see what I mean. And this comes to us from Janes Hansen, and it appears at dailytelegraph.com.au, published on the 6th of November 2016. Anti-vaxxer activists wrongly identify Byron Bay physiotherapist as pro-vaccination blogger. PETER Tiernan is being bombarded by threatening calls and messages from anti-vaccination activists and fears, quote, one absolute nutter, end quote, could attack him or his family. All because some activists think he is Reasonable Hank, a pro-vaccination blogger who has been enraging the anti-vaxxers for years. The problem is Mr Tiernan, a 51-year-old physiotherapist who works in the Byron Shire, is not Reasonable Hank and has never been. Quote, it started with a message on Facebook Messenger to my wife that they needed to discuss something about her husband. Then it was phone calls at work. They were sending private messages to me with my profile picture saying we know who you are and where I live and where my kids go to school. They sent messages knowing the day I had off from work, and they have called my work. I've gone to the police, but they are not interested. I've had lots of calls with numbers withheld. One woman said they had been around to my house and they say they're going to expose me, but it's a monumental case of mistaken identity. But that's the quality of their research, end quote, Mr Tiernan said. Mr Tiernan has taken down his Facebook page and changed his phone number. Quote, all it takes is one absolute nutter to believe all this stuff, end quote, Mr Tiernan said. The man the anti-vaxxers wanted to target was PETER Tiernan, not Tiernan, who lives about 1,000 kilometres away. Mr Tiernan, also known as Reasonable Hank, has been a thorn in the side of the anti-vaccination movement for years, blogging and exposing the cruel trolling of bereaved parents, alerting authorities to fraudulent behaviour, and, most recently, outing nurses who are spreading anti-vaccination misinformation in hospitals, which has led to the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Australia clamping down on such nurses. For his trouble, Mr Tiernan has received hundreds of death threats, while anti-vaxxers have tried for years to unearth him. The group Anti-Vaccination Australia thought they hit pay dirt when they stumbled across PETER Tiernan, a Byron Bay physiotherapist who, although pro-vaccination, has never stuck up his head on the issue. One well-known anti-vaxxer, Belgian Colag, pronounced on the Anti-Vaccination Australia Facebook site under the heading Urgent Public Announcement, quote, "We give great pleasure in announcing that after several weeks of investigation we have found and located reasonable Hank. We urge all people from Byron Bay to be aware that he does work at the Ballina Hospital and is unfortunately in the heart of most of us anti-vaxxers, reporting and vilifying us for the last 7 years. We are now in the process of organising a class action against him," end quote. The post was accompanied by photos of PETER Tiernan and his wife. Sydney naturopath Brett Smith wrote on his blog, quote, "Now, like most effective pharma trolls and cowards, of course, he had to remain anonymous. You can't spend your entire life slandering all those poor vaccine-damaged families and also have the courage to do it under your own name. So no, Hank, in a crafty bit of wordsmanship, altered his name from PETER Tiernan to PETER Tiernan. Nice one, Shank. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink," end quote. He later told the Sunday Telegraph he stood by his investigative skills. Quote, "I've got the right man. Poor Hank has no idea I've spoken with both people. You can quote me on that," end quote. Mr. Smith said. Mr. Tiernan, also known as Reasonable Hank, said he had chosen to remain anonymous for good reason. Quote, "Very deliberately, there are no public photographs of me because the threats have escalated over the years," end quote, he said. Quote, "One man said, 'I'm going to come and kill your whole family.' Another said he was going to strangle me, and others have said, 'Guess what? We know where you live.' Now they are sending messages to my inbox including a photo of PETER Tiernan. They've sent that as a threat to say we know what you look like. I'm speechless at how stupid they are, but it's taken a sinister turn, and they don't care about verifying facts, but they have singled out a completely innocent man and his family," end quote. There is no suggestion that either Mr. Smith or Ms. Colag have made these sort of threats to either Mr. Tiernan or Mr. Tiernan. When asked if they knew they had the wrong person and why they were publicly targeting the wrong Peter, Ms. Colag said the threats were, quote, "hearsay," end quote, and that, quote, "you have all the screenshots, but you haven't got your facts right," end quote. On Friday, Ms. Colag and Mr. Smith pledged to vaccinate their kids if they were proved wrong. Quote, "If you prove us wrong and you're not PETER Tiernan, me and Brett Smith are making an official announcement that we're going to vaccinate our children and retire from the movement," end quote, the post read. Police are investigating the threats. Thank you to Janes Hansen for that report. We'll keep you posted when more developments come to hand. It's going to be interesting to see what the ramifications are and if these people, whoever they are, ultimately responsible, are prosecuted. A link in this week's show notes.
Richard.
Oh, hi, Trish. Hi. Would you like a coffee?
Yeah, thanks. What are you working on?
I'm trying to come up with a new promo to play on the Skeptic Zone.
Who's it for?
The Good Thinking Society in the UK. You know, Michael Marshall, Simon Singh, Laura Thomas and that crowd.
Oh, yeah, I know them. Oh. They've been doing some great work investigating veterinary homeopathy.
Veterinary homeopathy? What, you sugar pills for cows?
I know, right? And also they're looking at some of the dodgy medical advice given by UK chiropractors.
Really? Okay, look, I'll mention all that in the promo. Now, their website is goodthinkingsociety.org.
And they've recently been reporting on the resurgence of faith healer Peter Popov.
Peter Popov? Great. Okay, look, thanks for that. It gives me something good to think about. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, and good heavens, that last story of the appalling stupidity, arrogance of the conspiracy theorists, the anti-vaxxers. More about that soon, I'm sure. There will be more. There will be ramifications, and we'll keep you up to date. And if you want to be kept up to date on many things, and you're in Australia, don't forget the Australian Skeptics National Convention is coming up at the end of this month. Link at the show notes, or just Google Australian Skeptics National Convention. You'll find out more about that. Of course, I'll be appearing in New Zealand in a few weeks at their national conference. Again, link on the show notes. And if you're in New Zealand, it would be great to see you. The conference will be in Queenstown at the beginning of December. Thanks to those people who keep asking me how the Skeptic Zone kittens are. Well, I don't know how long a kitten is a kitten before it becomes a cat, but I think they're cats now. Henrietta weighed in today at 4.5 kilos and Maud weighed in at 4 kilos. So they're not little kittens anymore. We might have to interview them next week on the show, see what their opinions are. Thank you to all those people who came along to Skeptics in the Pub just the other night. It was fabulous. It was packed. We had a huge turnout here in Sydney for Skeptics in the Pub, where we enjoy to talk about Nigerian scammers and things like that, how people can be sucked in, how they're gullible, how some people can be gullible to these sort of scams. And if you want to be kept abreast of goings-on with the local scene here in Sydney, I suggest you go to meetup.com/AUST Skeptics, Ost Skeptics. Sign up there, and you will be kept up to date. When there are announcements to be made, they will appear, and you can reserve your place at the pub. And just between you and me, early next year, we have a pretty big name appearing at Skeptics in the Pub. So that's probably a wise thing to do, is to put yourself down on the meetup list so you get advanced notification. I certainly will. Thank you to all those people who said hello to me at the origami convention last week here in Sydney. That was a great time. Had a wonderful time. And I gave a lesson in how to fold the flying pig, Pegasus. If you want to learn how to fly, that would be fun. If you want to learn how to fold your own flying pig, the James Randi Educational Foundation, the logo, the flying pig, Pegasus, just Google Pegasus and origami, or go to YouTube and look up for origami Pegasus, and you'll find me giving instructions there, video instructions. But now, with the birds still singing outside the window, flying past occasionally, which amuses the Skeptic Zone cats, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter @SkepticZone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation.
We need quiet for this.
Oh.
We need to be quiet for this.
Wait, let me get closer.
Where is it, here?
Yeah, this is me.
This is the Skeptic Zone podcast. No, wait. No, I'm the Skeptic Zone podcast, and you're... No, wait. I'm George Robb, and the Skeptic Zone podcast is listening to me. No, wait. The Skeptic Zone... Podcasting is cool for koalas. Skeptic Zone is potting. Hi, this is George Robb, and you're listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast.
Well, he hasn't commented yet. Maybe it hasn't made it all the way across the planet yet.